Hey there, and welcome to What If It All Goes Right, the podcast where we flip the script on obstacles and turn them into opportunities. I'm Angela Gargano, 6-time American Ninja Warrior, Miss Fitness America, keynote speaker, and someone who knows firsthand what it's like to face setbacks and wonder, is this for me? I've torn my ACL on national television, worked the 12-hour overnight shifts as a biochemist, and battled my own doubts about how to chase my goals while juggling life's chaos. But through it all, I've learned one powerful truth. It's not about avoiding challenges, it's about how you view them. The difference between success and staying stuck, it's all in your mindset and what you do next. This podcast is here to remind you that every single person you admire has faced obstacles. The real magic happens when you decide to see those hardships as stepping stones to something greater. Each week, we'll dive into powerful stories and practical tools and mindset shifts to help you take control of your life and ask the big question, what if it all goes right? You'll leave each episode empowered, inspired, and equipped with the actionable steps to create the life you've been dreaming of. Because the truth is, you're stronger than you think, and your obstacles are just opportunities in disguise. Let's rewrite your story together. Get ready to feel inspired, take action, and see what happens when you start asking, what if it all goes right? Welcome back to What If It All Goes Right. I'm your host, Angela Gargano, and today we're kicking off a powerful two-part series that's all about shifting the question your brain loves to ask. But what if it all goes wrong? And here's the truth. Your brain is wired to anticipate the worst. And this is a survival mechanism. But the problem, most of the things we fear today, like launching a business, giving a presentation, taking a leap, they aren't life or death threats. And yet we treat them like they are. Now, in this first part, we're diving into the science and psychology of why your brain defaults to the negative. And I'll give you 4 proven tools to start rewiring your thoughts. From understanding the negativity bias, to reframing fear of failure, to journaling, what if it all goes right? And finally, using visualization the way Olympians or ninja warriors do. If you've been stuck in overthinking, second-guessing, or constantly playing the worst case scenario game in your head, this episode is going to shift everything for you. Now, before we dive in, I want to ask you for a real quick favor. If you've been enjoying the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you could take just 60 seconds to leave a rating and a review, it helps this show reach more people who needs to hear these conversations. I'd be so grateful. All right. Let's dive into the first 4 of 8 things you need to know about shifting your mindset. Number 1, negativity bias is wired in. Let's start here. Research shows that human brain has what psychologists call a negativity bias. This means we're naturally more sensitive to negative experiences than positive ones. Great, right? Think about your own life. If you get 5 compliments in a day, but just 1 piece of criticism, which one do you replay in your head as you fall asleep? It's always the criticism, right? And there's science to back this up. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that a single negative event carries the same emotional weight as 5 positive ones. Isn't that insane? Another study from Dr. John, I'm going to say this last name wrong, Kakapogo, at the University of Chicago, showed that negative images and words trigger stronger and faster brain activity than positive ones. In other words, your brain reacts more intensely when something goes wrong than when something goes right. Yikes. Thanks, brain. Thanks, brain. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, this bias was actually life-saving. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors needed to be hyper-aware of danger, like true danger, not like first world danger, like true danger. If you assume the rustling in the bushes was a tiger, and it turned out to just be the wind, there was no harm done. You lived another day. But if you assumed it was harmless and it actually was the dang tiger, that mistake could be fatal. Here's the problem though. We're still walking around with that same wiring today, even though most of us don't face life or death threats on a daily basis. So instead of protecting us from tigers, this negativity bias shows up as fear of starting the business, fear of putting ourselves out there online, fear of saying yes to a new relationship, or even fear of speaking up in a meeting. Basically, your brain is acting like hitting publish on an Instagram post is as dangerous as being hunted in the wild by a tiger. Now, it sounds completely ridiculous, but that's exactly what's happening on the neurological level. And here's where it becomes self-fulfilling cycle. The more you focus on the negative, the more your brain builds and strengthens that neural pathways. So those ruminations, those cycles you keep having of this, it's going to build that up. We don't want that. And over time, what if it all goes wrong becomes the default loop you run into every time you face something new. Now, the first step is obviously the awareness around this. The moment you notice your brain saying this might go wrong, just take a moment and truly pause and label it. Literally tell yourself, this is just biology. This is a negativity bias at work. It's not a fact. It's not a prediction of the future. When you can separate the thought from the truth, you create space to choose a new perspective. And that space is where real possibility begins. Now, fear of failure is the number one dream killer. So let's talk about fear of failure, because honestly, it's one of the biggest reasons we stay stuck. Here's what the research says. Studies show that about 1 in 3 adults openly admit that fear of failure stops them from even starting their goal and taking that first step. And if we're being honest, that number is probably higher. Because who wants to admit they're letting fear run the show? What's fascinating is that most people dramatically overestimate how bad failing will actually feel. This is something psychologists call the impact bias. Basically, before something happens, we think the negative emotion will hit harder and last longer than it actually does. So here's an example. Let's say you're applying for a job and you get rejected. In your head, you picture that rejection crushing your confidence for literally months, maybe even making you question your worth. But in reality, research shows most people bounce back emotionally within just a few days or few weeks. We're far more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. Now, here's the tricky part though. Because we think failure will completely destroy us, we avoid even putting ourselves in a position where failure is even possible. That means we don't try the thing, we don't launch the project, we don't step on the stage. Fear doesn't just hold us back from success, it prevents us from even entering the arena where success is even possible. Now think about it. How many times have you stopped yourself before you even started? All because your mind whispered, but what if I fail? Now, what if failure wasn't the end of the story, but the tuition you pay for growth? Every failed rep in the gym makes you stronger. Every failed attempt in life gives you data. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, what will I learn if I do? Now, here's a tool you can use anytime fear of failure creeps in. Write down your worst case scenario. For example, if I launch my business, maybe no one will actually buy. And then ask yourself, then what? Maybe you lose a little bit of money. It's not so bad. It's not life or death, right? Ask again. Well, then what? You learn what didn't work. Ask it again. And then what? You try again, and this time you have way more knowledge than you did before. Now, usually by the third or fourth time of asking, and then what, you realize that failure isn't actually life-ending. It's just uncomfortable. And discomfort, it's survivable. Now, a great tip is to keep a failure resume. Now, let me tell you, I've got a huge failure resume. Write down the risk you've taken that didn't work out, and then next to them, write what you learned. This helps your brain reframe failure as progress instead of defeat. Now, fear of failure is universal, but the people you admire the most, the authors, the athletes, the entrepreneurs, they don't succeed because they never have failed. They succeed because they're willing to fail forward. And they've probably failed way more times than you can even imagine. Here's the thing. Your brain is already a master at rehearsing the worst case scenario. It's automatic. It happens before you even realize it. You imagine yourself tripping during your speech, the audience going silent, your launch completely flopping, or your post getting 0 likes. That movie reel plays on a loop without interruption. It becomes your reality, even if it hasn't actually happened yet. But here's the science your brain is going through. Thanks to neuroplasticity, it literally reshapes itself every time you repeat a thought. Think of it like a hiking trail. The more often you walk it, the more worn down the path becomes, right? If you always stop at what if it all goes wrong, that trail gets deeper and easier to default to. But the moment you start internally asking, what if it all goes right, you carve out a brand new trail. And the more often you walk it, the stronger it becomes. So here's an example. This is an old thought. What if I launch this course and no one buys it? A new thought. What if this course becomes the thing that helps hundreds of people and changes my life financially? Notice that you're not ignoring the fear. The fear is still there. You're not pretending it doesn't exist. You're simply giving equal airtime to the possibility of success. Because right now, most of us are running on this unbalanced system. We're giving fear 100% of the mic, and the possibility gets 0. Now, this works because studies show that when you create a positive counter thought to a negative one, you actually weaken the emotional charge of the fear. And over time, your brain starts defaulting to balance instead of the doom. Don't let your story end on the negative. Complete the sentence with a positive what if. Think of it like a movie. You wouldn't walk out halfway through when the main character is at rock bottom. You stick around for the redemption arc. Don't cut your own story short. Now, here's a practical tool and a daily what-if journaling exercise that you can do. Every morning, grab a notebook and write down 3 negative what-if thoughts that are circling in your mind. Then immediately write down a positive what-if for each one. What if I freeze during my presentation? What if I deliver it so passionately that people can't stop talking about it afterwards? What if I'm not ready to start my podcast? What if starting messy is exactly what inspires someone else to begin too? Do this for 21 days. 21 days, because it takes about 3 weeks for your brain to start forming a new default pathway. It's not just going to magically happen right away. I just feel better about it. My brain is acting differently, right? So you need to stick to it for a good chunk of time. And a really big pro tip, and it's going to seem a little weird, is say them out loud. Speaking the positive what if activates more areas of the brain, making it more powerful than just writing it down. What if it all goes wrong? It's keeping you paralyzed. What if it all goes right? Is propelling you forward. Both are just stories your brain is telling. You get to choose which one you rehearse. And whichever one you practice most often is the one your life is going to follow. Now, last thing here is visualization. Now, let's take this one step further, and it's reframing the what-if thoughts to rewriting your script. Visualization is like pressing play and watching the movie before it actually happens. And here's the key. Your brain doesn't know the difference between vividly imagined and physically real. Isn't that crazy? Brain scans show that when you visualize performing an action, whether it's giving a presentation, running the race, or hitting the free throw, the same neural circuits fire as if you were actually doing it. I know I used to do this all the time before a gymnastics competition. I would visualize me crushing that routine, or even on the ninja course. Now, one famous study split basketball players into 3 groups. One practiced free throws physically, one practiced only in their mind, and one didn't even practice at all. After weeks, the group that practiced only in their mind improved almost as much as the physical practice group. Can we get a mind blown? That's how powerful mental rehearsal is. Now, Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian in history, used visualization religiously. He didn't just picture his races going perfectly. He pictured things going wrong too. He imagined his goggles filling up with water, his suit ripping, and even pain in his muscles. That way, when his goggles actually did fill up with water during the Olympics, he didn't panic because he already lived it in his mind and he knew exactly what to do. And he obviously won gold, and it was incredible. Now, if your brain is already rehearsing failure scenarios, why not use the same mental energy to rehearse success? You're already playing movies in your head. Make sure they're the ones you actually want to live. Now, here's a practical tool. We're going to go through a 5-minute future self-visualization. So here's a simple way to practice it. You'll sit in quiet space with no distractions at all. You'll close your eyes, and you're going to picture, what if it all goes right? And you're going to picture that scenario in detail. If it's giving the speech, imagine the microphone in your hand. The sound of the audience clapping, the smile on your face afterwards. If it's running a business, picture the sales notifications, the thank you messages from the clients, the pride you feel signing your name on the contract. Engage as many senses as possible. What do you see, hear, feel, even smell? The more vivid, the more your brain encodes it as reality. And just know it might take you some time to really understand what that feels like. So give yourself the opportunity. I know for me, each time I do it, I start to sense a little bit more. And do this just for 5 minutes a day. And each day it's going to get more and more vivid. You're going to get a better understanding of what that feels like and all the senses. Now, another pro tip is to pair this with movement. So research shows visualization is even more powerful when paired with physical cues like smiling, standing tall, or even walking while imagining success. I love to do like a nice little power walk, imagining my success in the morning. Now, visualization isn't just daydreaming. It's mental training. Every rep strengthens your belief system. And the more reps you put in, the easier it becomes to expect things to go right instead of going wrong. Now, let's recap the 4 shifts that we covered today. First, we talked about the negativity bias. So your brain clings to the negative more strongly than to the positive. And for this, awareness is literally your first line of defense. Number 2, fear of failure. Most people overestimate how devastating failure will feel. And remember, failure is just data, just research. It's not doom. It's not the end. Number 3, reframing what if. Don't let your story end on the negative. Complete the sentence with a positive. What if? And number 4, visualization. Mental rehearsal isn't woo. It's science. Practice your success daily just like an athlete. So here's your homework before we meet for part 2 of this series. Start paying attention to the stories your brain tells you this week. When it whispers, what if it all goes wrong? I want you to pause, name it, and then flip it into, what if it all goes right? And if you want to go further, try the daily what if journaling or the 5-minute visualization exercise. Or heck, do them all. And in part 2, we're going to go even deeper with strategies to build a proof list of wins. Anchor confidence through your body, protect your mental environment from negativity, and surround yourself with the right people. Now, trust me, you don't want to miss this. Now, until then, remember, your biology might be wired for fear, but your spirit is wired for possibility.